Hello everyone, today we're talking about one of the most important topics for your development as a structural designer, which is understanding the Australian standards. I know it's a bold claim, but you will use these codes on every project from your first job to your last. And I'm emphasizing this for a very simple reason. Wherever you work, it could be in South America, US, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, there's always a system of rules for engineering and construction that you must follow. And in Australia, that system starts with the National Construction Code, the NCC, and it's supported by a set of documents that we call the Australian Standards. If you are in New Zealand, we share a combined standards group. There are differences, but the core concepts are very similar. So by the end of this lesson, you will see how the NCC and the standards fit together and how to use them on real projects. Now, I'm not going to give you a boring list of codes. That's not how a real designer thinks. Instead, I'm going to give you something I call the master map. I'm going to show you the logic of how all these standards connect to each other, following the exact workflow a designer or an engineer uses on a real project, from the top of the roof all the way down to the ground. So let's get started. Right, so our master map starts right at the top with the National Construction Code, which we call NCC. And the NCC is the guide for all building and plumbing in Australia. And depending on the state you live, you will have a building inspector or maybe a certifier, which will check the plans and the drawings and supervise some parts of the construction to enforce the rules from the construction code, from the NCC. So that means the NCC is mandatory. You must follow its rules, and I'm going to show you which rules you have to follow in a second. So the NCC is split into 3 volumes. For us, the 2 most important ones are Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 1 applies to most large and commercial buildings. Volume 2 applies specifically to houses, what the code calls Class 1 and Class 10A buildings. Houses are Class 1. And then Volume 3 covers plumbing and drainage. So for our double-story house in this program, we'll be working almost entirely inside Volume 2. Now, the NCC itself covers many things like amenity clauses, like room sizes, ceiling heights, site specifications, fire-related regulations. So these clauses affect mainly architects and builders. I'm not saying you should completely disregard everything, because there are many important clauses that you should be aware of. But for us structural designers, the most important part is the section on structural provisions. But here's the thing, this section will point us to or reference all the other Australian standards, the standards for loads, for materials, and for design. So when the NCC wants to tell us how to design a structure, it simply points us to the rest of our master map. So we're now ready to start our design workflow. So what's the very first step? Before we can design a single beam wall or footing, which is what I call the solution, we have first to understand the problem. We had to ask ourselves, what forces will this structure have to resist? This brings us to 2 key standards. AS/NZS 1170, which is Structural Design Actions, and a simplified version of AS 1170.2, which is AS 4055, Wind Loads for Housing. Let's start with AS/NZS 1170, which is the main loads standards. So it's broken down into several parts that tells us exactly what loads to design for. So part 0 is all about general principles. It covers load combinations, method of analysis. It provides some guidance for deflection limits. What we're going to do in this course is to bookmark some sections of the standard that we will use. So we're going to bookmark section 3, section 4, section 6, appendix C, and appendix F. That's what we're going to use throughout the course. Now, part 1 of AS 1170 tells us the permanent actions, like the weight of the roof tiles, the self-weight of the beams, the self-weight of the walls. Those are what we call the dead loads. And then we have imposed actions like people, furniture, or a car in the garage. Those are the live loads. So we're going to bookmark table 3.1 of section 3, which is some reference values of live loads for floors, and table 3.2 for roof live loads. Then we're going to bookmark table 3.3, imposed actions for barriers. You might have to design balustrading, screening, or bollard barriers for cars. We're going to bookmark appendix A, which tabulates the densities of common used building materials like plasterboard, tiles, brick, and then appendix B for other type of live loads. And then we've got part 2 of AS 1170, which is all about wind actions. There's a bit more involved in this code, so I won't be listing all the sections for you to bookmark, but it will be in our Notion second brain. And we also have a whole module on bracing design which talks about this part. Then part 3 of this code covers snow, and then part 4 covers earthquake actions. We'll mainly focus on parts 1 and 2 in this course. Now you might be looking at AS 1170.2 wind actions and thinking it sounds complex, and you would be right. It's full of detailed calculations. But for our double-story house, we can use AS 4055 wind loads for housing. This standard is a simplified version of the full wind code. It is extensively used for residential buildings in Australia, and let us quickly determine a simple wind classification for non-cyclonic regions from N1 to N6, and then for cyclonic regions from C1 to C4. So to recap, we used AS 1170 and AS 4055 to figure out all the forces acting on our building, and that's how we defined the problem. So what's the next step now? We need to design the solution. We need to create a skeleton for our house that can take all of those loads: the wind, the people, the weight of the materials, and transfer them all the way down to the ground. And this is where we get to the load path. This is the single most important concept in structural design, which is called the load path, and it's exactly how we will link all our material standards together from top to bottom. Our load path starts at the top with the roof, so the wind and the weight of the tiles land on the roof, and the first standard that we're going to design the skeleton is AS 1684, residential timber framed construction. This is probably the standard that you will use the most often, and it's a 4-part series that is the perfect cookbook because it gives us span tables and guidelines to design roof rafters, floor joists, wall studs, bracing, tie-down connection. It's very useful, and I would suggest that you read through it. It has images, so it's not too dry, it's very easy to read. Just go through all these 9 sections and make sure you understand all the concepts. As you can see here on section 1, there are some limitations to use this standard. So it applies to wind class from N124, or in the case of cyclonic region, C1 to C3, maximum 2 stories, maximum width of the building 16 meters, maximum wall height 3 meters, roof pitch maximum 35 degrees, bracing spacing maximum 9 meters. This value can vary, but we'll learn more about in the next lesson. So if our building is outside of the scope of AS 1684, or we have to provide a more bespoke solution, or maybe design a different timber connection, we would be jumping to AS 1720. We have a whole course on that. Just head to your classroom and watch the timber design crash course after you finish this program. Don't go right now. But then what happens when the client wants a giant open plan living room, or maybe a double garage door, or the client wants massive spans? A timber bin might not do the job. And this is where we need a different material. And this links us directly to AS 4100 steel structures. We will use AS 4100 along with some design capacity tables to design steel structures. And the same logic apply to other materials, right? So what if the client wants a suspended concrete floor? We are now linked to AS 3600 concrete structures, and we might support this reinforced concrete slab on concrete block walls or brick walls, which then links us to AS 3700 masonry structures, or AS 4773 masonry in small buildings, which is very handy for residential projects because it provides several capacity tables. So you won't spend too much time running numbers and you can focus on other things if you want to. So you see what I've done here? By following the load path from top to bottom, we have used a whole system of standards all linked together. So we've connected all the loads from the roof, the floors, the steel beams, the concrete slabs, and we transfer them all down to the bottom of our ground floor walls. Now they have nowhere else to go but into the ground. This brings us to the final standards in our master map, and for houses, this is AS 2870 residential slabs and footings. It's basically another cookbook with tables and guidelines to design residential footings. We do have 3 lessons about AS 2870 in this program, and also if you head to our second brain, you will find an overview of AS 2870. No need to go there right now, just wait until you get to the footings design module. So if you look inside of AS 2870, you will find pre-calculated dimensions for footings and raft slabs based on different site classifications and type of constructions. You could technically use engineering principles to calculate all these numbers for every single project, but that would add significant time and money to your design fee. So for most houses, using the designs in AS 2870 is faster and more cost effective. It does have some flaws, but we'll discuss that in another lesson. And of course, not all sites are simple. What if your house is on a steep slope? You will need to design retaining walls, and this links us to AS 4678 earth retaining structures. What if the soil is extremely bad? A standard slab won't work, and then we might need to use piles, and this links us to AS 2159 piling design and installation. And these standards are used in combination with AS 3600 concrete structure because you might have to design a pad footing or a strip footing or a concrete board pier or maybe a retaining wall footing. And by the way, you can learn how to design a retaining wall in the classroom in this course, but don't go there right now. Focus on this program first. And with that, our load path is complete. We've taken the problem, which is the loads from AS 1170. We designed a solution, which is the skeleton, and we designed that solution using AS 1684, 4100, 3600, and transfer all the loads into the ground using AS 2870. That is the master map of how these standards connect. It's not just a random list of codes anymore. You can now see the logic. Every standard has its place, and now you know why and when we use them. Now, these are not all the standards, of course. There are many others we'll use for specific situations, but these are the Australian standards that you should prioritize in your studies to complete this program successfully. We'll be referring to them in every step of the design throughout this course, and my goal was to show you that these standards aren't just something to memorize. They are the tools that you will use to trace the load path. If you have any questions, feel free to post inside the community, and I'll see you in the next lesson.